How's it, Grant here, and welcome to my camera comparison between the OnePlus 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 9 Pro. And I was really excited to get this camera comparison done because I think now that the 7 Pro and 8 Pro are both on Android 11 and have gone through several system updates, and the 9 Pro, which is now on its 5th system updates, I thought this would be a very close comparison actually, and I really thought the 7 and 8 Pro would compete very well with the 9 Pro. And personally, I think the 7 and 8 Pro got some unfair criticism about their camera performance. The 7 Pro fairly was probably not as good at launch as it should have been, but has improved over time. The 8 Pro, from what I remember, was actually pretty decent at launch and definitely has improved. And the 9 Pro has been pretty good and fairly good at launch and has improved with these camera updates as well. The one thing that I'll note, which is what you'll see in these videos, is that the 9 Pro recording volume and audio was pretty low when recording video for some reason after this update. I don't recall it being like that prior to the 5th system update, so it could be something that happened after that update. I'm not sure if I'm the only one experiencing that, but that is something that I did notice after recording video with the OnePlus 9 Pro this time. But I think a lot of people are going to be really surprised at the results, and the 7 and 8 Pro, to me personally, in a lot of the shots were pretty close to the 9 Pro's performance here. And while all three of these OnePlus phones are not going to be the best cameras on the market today, it's not going to compete especially with the zoom range that you're seeing on something like the S21 Ultra or with what Huawei's doing with the periscope zoom lenses. But I do think their main camera and ultra-wide cameras are fairly competitive now, and I'm really excited to see where OnePlus goes with this, now continuing their partnership with Hasselblad with future devices. But go ahead and check out all the photos and videos for yourself and let me know what you think. Do you think the 7 and 8 Pro are competing very well now after the updates with the 9 Pro, or is the 9 Pro just head and shoulders above the other two? Check out the photos and videos like I always do in good and low light, and let me know. Drop a comment with what your thoughts are, and let's continue our conversation on there. But go ahead and check out the photos and videos and let me know what you think. Hey everyone, so I'm out in the park testing the video on the OnePlus 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 9 Pro. This is the ultra-wide angle lens on each at 4K 30 frames per second. I'm just going to pan around to give you a feel for the ultra-wide angle lenses between the three phones. Check out to see if you notice any kind of color reproduction between the three, especially between the 9 Pro and the other two with the Hasselblad color tuning. See if you notice any difference. They're all going to have the same width and field of view here, so they all fit the same in the frame. I'm going to have to stop the video because the 7 Pro doesn't allow me to change lenses while the 8 Pro and 9 Pro does. So I'll come back with the main lens right after this. So here I are with the main lens between the 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 9 Pro. Again, I'll pan around to give you a feel for what it looks like in this setting. And again, see if you notice any kind of difference in the color reproduction on these lenses. Again, especially between the 9 Pro and the other two. So I'll go ahead and move over here to the right and we'll test the zoom here on all three. So let's see if we can move into 3 times digital there on the 7 Pro. Let's go into 3 times there on the 8 Pro. That should be telephoto zoom. And for some reason the 9 Pro does not use a telephoto camera here, so let's go to 3 times digital there on the 9 Pro. And let's go to max zoom on the 7 Pro, which is 10 times. Max zoom here on the 8 Pro, which is also 10 times. And 10 times zoom on the 9 Pro. So 10 times digital on all three. And I'll try to pan left and right so you can see the differences between the three. And let's go ahead and move into the main lens on each. So 1 times, back that out. And let's test out the autofocus on all three, first with the 7 Pro. So pretty quick autofocus here on the 7 Pro. And let's try with the 8 Pro. So pretty quick focus and refocus here as well on the 8 Pro. And let's go with the 9 Pro. Same thing, pretty quick focus and refocus here on all three. So let's go ahead and test the stabilization as I walk down the stairs. And then we'll walk through the path and we'll pull up here at the end. Alright, and let's check out. I'll pan up here so you can see the differences in the lighting into the trees and into the sky there. So here's some front-facing video from the OnePlus 7 Pro, OnePlus 8 Pro, and OnePlus 9 Pro. This is all at 1080p, 30 frames per second. The OnePlus 9 Pro can shoot up to 60 frames per second, but I want to keep this all even, and this video will be exported at 30 frames per second anyway. So again, obviously I'm outdoors. Again, I like to start in the shade because there's more even lighting. This is going to be the easiest lighting for these cameras to handle. Not going to be a lot of flare-ups, or not as bad anyway as you can have in direct sunlight. But you can see it's blowing out the sky because it's trying to expose me properly, and at least that's doing pretty good and looking pretty much even on all three. And I'll pan around here this way so you can see what it looks like this way, where the sun is in front of me, so that should be blown out like it is. But again, I'm still decently or pretty well exposed, and again, still picture quality to me from the viewfinder is looking the same on all three. And we'll pan this way, and the background should clear up a little bit more definition in those trees. And then if I pan up, you can see it's blowing out the sky there. So we'll go ahead and walk to test stabilization on the front-facing cameras here, and hopefully this gives you an idea of the differences, if you can spot any. I'm not really seeing too much of a difference between the three in the viewfinder. So let me know, now that it's finally exported, what you think about the picture quality here on the front-facing cameras. Hey everyone, so here's a low light video test on the rear facing cameras between the OnePlus 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 9 Pro. This is at 4K 30 frames per second. I'm just panning around here to give you a feel for how these cameras look here and how they compare against all three. Check out the color reproduction. See if you notice any difference between the 9 Pro and the 8 and 7 Pro, given the color calibration that OnePlus says they're doing with Hasselblad on the 9 Pro. And we'll go ahead and test some zoom here as well. So let's go ahead and move into 3x digital here on the 7 Pro. You can see clear up some of the shadows in that tree. Let's move into 3x on the 8 Pro. There we go, also clear up those shadows, and let's go to 3x here on the 9 Pro. There we go, so 3x zoom on all three. Let's pan over here to the sign and zoom a little bit further in. So let's go to max 10x on the 7 Pro, max 10x on the 8 Pro, and we can go max 10x on the 9 Pro as well. So let me pan here so you can see the difference in the zoom and digital zoom quality and some low light here. Let's back them out on all three, and we'll go ahead and pan this way, and we'll start walking to test stabilization. And of course, we'll start walking from a much more well-lit area to a much darker area to see how these phones handle the light transition from light to dark, and if there's any kind of a difference in their low-light performance, also in their stabilization here as I'm walking. And already as I'm rounding the corner, it's getting a lot darker, as you can see. But all three phones seem to be illuminating the area to be much brighter than it really is, at least what I'm seeing in the viewfinder here. And let's just pull up here where it's pretty dark out right now, and the phones are actually brightening things up pretty significantly. We'll pan up into the bright night sky, which is quite dark. A little bit of light pollution on here, but it's definitely not. It's a little bit darker than what these phones are showing here. And we'll pan over to the left so you can see what it looks like here down this alleyway where there's a little bit more light. So there is a 4K low light test on all three phones. Hey everyone, so here's a low light video test on the OnePlus 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 9 Pro. And like I usually do, I like to start out in some pretty well lit area so you can see how well it does in some optimal lighting for low light anyway. So I'll go ahead and pan around here so you can kind of see what these cameras look like. You can see I have some lights to the left and to the right of me, and even a little bit behind me there you can see some of that bright light. So this is being shot at 1080p 30 frames per second, and which is the max resolution on all three phones. The 9 Pro can shoot in 60 frames. I want to keep this even across all three. So let's go ahead and start walking and test stabilization here. And we'll go ahead and walk from this pretty well lit area to a little bit darker area so you can see how it handles different lighting conditions here. And as I walk this way, like I said, it'll get a little bit darker, and I'll also have a fountain approaching to my right so you can hear how that affects the audio quality, and we'll give a good test to the microphones and how that background noise competes with the sound of my voice here. So as you can see, it's a little bit darker in this area, but we'll go ahead and pan around this way so you can kind of see how these cameras do with the really bright lights behind me there. We can see and pan that way. Actually not too bad, not flaring them out really too badly considering how bright those lights are. And we'll go ahead and walk over here into the darker light so you can see how it looks here in this lighting situation. And so hopefully you enjoyed all the photos and videos here between the OnePlus 7 Pro, 8 Pro, and 9 Pro, and can see the progression between the three phones, and if there's been any kind of improvement, and also if OnePlus has actually improved the 7 and 8 Pro over the course of the last year or two with all these updates. And let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think the 7 and 8 Pro are actually pretty close to the 9 Pro now after all those updates, or has the 9 Pro and a specific partnership with Hasselblad really paid off to have a much more significant camera improvement in the 9 Pro over its predecessors. So there you go. Let me know in the comments which one you liked best, and as always, thanks for watching.